Hello, this is Gio, and I'm continuing with my Buccaneer Pinball project, which I just removed the inserts, the plastic inserts from the Playfield, not all of them, but the ones that were sort of depressed and needing to be more reinstalled more flush with the pinball table. And I used the heat gun to kind of like soften the glue, and I pop these off. But this time, for this video, I'm going to show you how to reinstall them. Now this is just a disclaimer. I didn't do anything fancy. I'm not doing anything fancy. I just want this table to play better so the balls will roll around better and I won't get as much wear on the edges of the inserts. So I'm not doing any major restoration, so I'm not doing anything really fancy. You can pop these out. You could sand them down with multiple versions of grit until they're polished, shiny, and you can do a really nice job cleaning them up, sanding the edges, putting primer on them so they will never come out again with some glue. But I just basically want to re-glue these back in just so it plays a little bit better. So a little disclaimer, please do not put any comments saying, oh, I would never do it that way, I'd do it so much better, etc. Again, I'm just showing a really simple way to glue these things back. And the glue I'm using is just Carpenter's wood glue, Elmer's Carpenter's wood glue. Now, a lot of people say never use wood glue. A lot of people say, oh, I always use wood glue. So it kind of depends on the preference. Some people use white glue, some people use super glue, some people use epoxies, etc., etc., etc. For every person you ask, you'll probably get a different glue. And yes, there's better glues out there for this purpose. There's stuff that holds better. Yes, I know wood glue doesn't hold well to plastic, but the original white glue that the manufacturer used didn't either. But so let's kind of review how, again, the manufacturer did it. Essentially, the manufacturer had a blank playfield. It didn't have any of the art on it yet. They drilled in these holes. They put these little plastic insert caps, and then they sanded the whole thing down. After they sanded, that's when they applied the art. So these inserts were sanded and made flush with the overall sanding of the playfield. Again, we don't have that luxury here, so we have to do our best to reinstall these as flush as possible. Now, maybe I could kind of show this. I'm not sure, I might have to readjust the light a little bit. But if you look at the playfield, you might be able to make out some sanding grooves from the original process. And in this case, well, not so much sanding. It could be a sanding residue or it could be part of the finish. But basically up and down, you kind of see a little bit of a grain up and down. And you could also see this on some of the plastic inserts. I'm not sure if this is doing the job at, oops, let me zoom in. You can kind of see a grain. You can kind of see an up and down grain. And sometimes if you look carefully, you can see, like, I think, let's try this insert here. This insert here kind of has a grain pattern that's not up and down, it's kind of sideways. Well, this one I had reinstalled earlier and I didn't really follow the grain. So if you're interested in to know if your inserts ever were re-glued, sometimes you can look at the grain, and if the grain on the inserts are different from the grain on the table, like that one is a little bit, and the number 8 is just a little bit off. The one above, you can clearly see the grain is a little bit different. Well, those have been reinstalled. So that's a little bit of an easy way to kind of see if your inserts have either fallen off or have been reinstalled previously. So again, to reinstall these, I am just simply going to use some Elmer's glue, but I'm not going to apply it directly into the hole from this. I'm going to put a little bit of a little pile, dab, right on a little, in this case, a little piece of wood, making sure I don't drip on the playfield. And I'm just going to use a little chopstick, kind of the end of the chopstick kind of works really well. Some people say you should never apply glue from on top because you drip adhesive on or glue on to the playfield. I like doing it where I could see. Some people like to apply it from underneath. That's fine, that's their preference. Again, I'd like to reiterate that I'm only interested in gluing these things back in. I'm using an Elmer's glue because I know I could get it out. And that's kind of mostly my priority here. I'm not interested in something that will be forever. Actually, I'd rather something that would be reversible from the process I do. Somebody else, if they want to do a technique that will last forever, well, once it's in for good. If you want to remove it, you might have to break the insert and damage the playfield. I would rather do something that's reversible. I know I could get Elmer's Carpenter wood glue out. So it just softens up with a heat gun. So that's kind of why I use this glue. Whether or not you think it's permanent, I really don't care. I just know I can get it out. So what I'm going to do is just dab. First of all, here, let me get a light so I can see. So I'm going to dab a little bit of glue just on the tip of the chopstick here. And then I'm just going to very lightly apply the glue to the edge. I'm going to be very careful that I do not get any on the playfield. And so I'm not going to put so much that it is drippable. And I'm not going to put in the sides of the hole. I'm just going to apply enough so it will adhere to the sides of the insert. Again, I don't want to put too much in the hole because when I put in the insert, I don't want it dripping down to the components below the playfield. So just put enough that'll hold the insert in and no more. You don't want it dripping out. So just kind of do a nice job applying it all the way around. And take your time about it. Wood glue doesn't dry immediately like some other glues like a super glue does. And so it gives you plenty of time to do what you need to do. Okay, so now I applied it into the hole. I did not apply it to the insert itself because if you apply it to the insert and push it in, the glue will kind of ooze out and cover and get on your playfield. If you put the glue in the hole and insert your insert, then the glue will kind of push down rather than squeeze up. So let me just put the light away. And next thing you want to do, hopefully you can see now, is you want to get some kind of flat block of some kind. A lot of people use a flat block of a piece of wood that's quite flat. I found this little part that used to be a battery case to a little toy, but the bottom is completely flat, and so when I depress it, it will make sure that everything is flat, adjacent, completely level, and so the edges of the insert will match the table surface. Before I insert it, I just want to double check that the insert itself is flat. So I'm just going to kind of flip it around and kind of move it and make sure that there's no high spot. I know like this little part right here kind of has a high spot. If I put it here, it would kind of wobble. Now if that happens and you push down on the insert, then the high center point will push farther and then your edges will actually be lower than the table. So be careful with that. If you're going to depress it, make sure it's flat. Sometimes you can want to go through that sanding process, but you'd have to replace the sticker on the top. So make sure it's flat, and so when you do depress it, everything will be even. If it's not, you might have to depress the sides so they're even rather than the whole thing. Or you could sometimes take your block of wood or your plastic, drill a hole a little smaller than your insert, and so when you push it in, the high point in the middle will fit in the hole, and so the high point won't really depress that far. So what I'm just going to do is just lightly, and I want to make sure I get this centered, just kind of place it lightly in there. And now with your fingers you could just sort of push it in a little bit and make sure that, in this case, the 2 is upright. Look on it different ways. And then when you think it's in the right position, you take your flat block, or in this case plastic, and just depress it down. And just make sure that it's all nice and level. Feel it lightly, and it is very flush. It's basically even with all the edges. So we know we have it done. And then we leave it. The Elmer's glue, try not to use it for at least 24 hours, hopefully 48 hours. Let it cure, let it get as hard as it needs to do. So that's how you do it. After I've finished these inserts, I'll just give it a nice good coat of wax, and I'll have a nice better playing surface. So I hope this helped you out. Again, don't give me all this junk email about how I did this wrong, because there's probably 1,000 ways of doing it differently, and I'm not doing a full restoration here. So good luck. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.